Tennessee This Week from WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hi everyone, welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Blake Stevens. U.S. Senator Bill Hagerty made a swing through our area last week. It gave us a chance to talk about rural hospitals and the chance of changing how the Senate works, with Democrats holding control by a thread. We also talked about the economy as Senator Hagerty visited a big employer in East Tennessee. The first stop was in Maryville at the Denso plant, where the senator applauded the company's growth despite the ongoing pandemic.
Tennessee has done a good job of keeping its economy open, and it's been a challenge for every state in the nation, no doubt about it. And my heart goes out to all of the families that have suffered and many who've lost their lives to this. But Tennessee has kept its head. We tried to keep our economy moving at the same time as we dealt with the pandemic, and I think the results speak for themselves. Tennessee's economy is leading by far. When you look at the average across the United States of America, our unemployment rate is below average. We are below the average, meaning we're doing better than other states. And Tennessee's economy, I think, has flourished in critical areas like automotive that we're seeing here today with Denso. Keeping the automotive sector going has been really critical to keeping our economy from suffering even more than it might otherwise have done. So I'm very pleased to see this type of the safety measures that have been put in place. I think the manufacturing community knows very well how to manage operations and how to modify and adjust. They've made those adjustments here, the health adjustments here, very effectively. And they've set an example for other parts of the world too. Denso immediately flipped over and began manufacturing face masks and distributed those here locally and around the country. It's that type of ability to step up and meet the challenge, help the community, that makes a real difference in the long run. I think all of the associates that work here feel proud to be part of this company, and I certainly know that they feel proud to be part of the Tennessee economy.
The senator also touched on ways the federal government has helped businesses during the pandemic and shared what he believes it should do going forward.
Getting the government out of the way often is the best thing that can be done. But during the course of the pandemic, we've seen the government step in many ways. And this company depends on suppliers from around the country, sometimes small companies that benefited from the PPP program, that have benefited from various aspects of programs that were meant to address a pandemic that was no fault of the people here in America. And so as we continue to grow out of this, I hope to see government step back, and I hope to see our economy flourish as a result of that.
Hagerty also spoke about H.R. 1, a measure that has already passed in the House. It aims to change the rules surrounding elections. Supporters say it would expand access. In order for it to happen, Democrats would likely have to change the filibuster rules in the Senate.
They call it For the People Act. It should be called For the Politicians Act. This is all about a power grab. The Democrats have power by the thinnest possible majority. It's a 50-50 Senate right now, and the only way they hold power is by the vote, the swing vote of the vice president. Yet they're going to try to take advantage of this situation and put in place a set of measures that will forever weaken the confidence of America in the sanctity of our elections. It'll make it much easier for more voter fraud, and it's going to encourage behavior that I think we would regret as Americans for years and decades to come. I certainly hope they don't break the filibuster. There are no Republicans that would support this. There's not a bipartisan aspect to this bill. What this is plain and simple, a power grab to fundamentally change the rules once they get into power in a way that they believe tilts the playing field to their advantage.
The next topic was health care. Senator Hagerty attended a roundtable with hospital CEOs in Knoxville and discussed ways the pandemic continues to impact the industry.
And what concerns, I think, all of us is that people are slow to come back into the healthcare system. There may be many procedures that they didn't do, elective procedures that they might have done, testing, that sort of thing. We need to get back to normal in our healthcare system because it could have long-term effects on our population. At the same time, the economics become ever more challenging every day. And our rural hospitals have a very challenging time. They operate on very thin margins. And the reimbursement rates from Washington are a persistent challenge. They spend a lot of time educating me today on some of those challenges, and I look forward to working with them to try to help address them. What really struck me was the rate at which Tennessee hospitals are reimbursed versus other states across the country. There's some adjustments that are made based on cost of living. And Tennessee, being a lower cost of living state, gets lower reimbursements. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of lower and lower reimbursements as some of the higher cost states continue to get higher reimbursements. It's a zero-sum game. The pie doesn't get larger It's just a matter of whether we're getting our fair share of that pie. So it was very helpful for me to spend time with these healthcare leaders today, with the business people from the hospital as well, to understand the economic impact of this system and how it's challenging them.
For Hagerty, the key for our health and our economic health is getting back to normal.
We are getting vaccinations in people's arms right away. I want to see us get our kids back to school, and that'll enable our parents to get back to work and I think get back to a more normal way of life. I think our frontline healthcare workers have been vaccinated, and I feel very good about that. But we need to get our population now to feel good about coming back to the hospital system. That's going to be important for the overall health of our state and our nation. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We talked about some things today that I hope will get us on a solid economic footing so that as we move into 2021, we'll be at a far better place.
Well, speaking of health, the vote we've been watching for happened Monday as the Knox County Commission voted to strip the County Board of Health's rulemaking power. When vote time came, Commission Chair Larson Jay was the only person who spoke.
I've maintained from the beginning, if the state wants to change the form and the function of the Board of Health, we will abide, yet still it has not. I continue to question, based on the clearly written state law, if Commission has the authority to establish an advisory Board of Health, but I'll just have to simply disagree with our law department on the interpretation and move on.
We learned the day after the vote that the change does not take effect immediately. That led us to also wonder, how will this play out rather. We sent 6 on Your Side reporter Elizabeth Kubel to follow up.
Does anybody wish to change their vote? Motion passes 8-3.
With that, the culmination of a debate spanning months. Knox County commissioners voting to strip the Board of Health of its policy-making ability, turning it instead into an advisory board for the county's health department and its health director, Dr. Martha Buchanan.
Regardless of who the law gives the authority to, my recommendations will continue to be based on public health and based in evidence. And so the recommendations won't change. The guidelines and what our community should be doing don't change. COVID hasn't changed.
Over the past year, the health board has enacted a handful of regulations: the mask mandate, social gathering limit, and bar and restaurant curfew. We asked Dr. Buchanan if she foresees those remaining intact following the board's dissolution.
What I can say for sure is I will continue to recommend the practices that the CDC is recommending, such as masking and social distancing and staying home if you're sick and washing your hands. I will continue to make recommendations that are based on public health. Whether or not there are regulations is not clear to me.
What is clear, though, is that this change will not happen overnight. The Knox County Mayor's office says the ordinance takes effect 15 days after it's adopted. And as we learn more about the board's future, we're also hearing from some of its members about theirs. Dr. Patrick O'Brien writing this in a letter to Commission. It was an honor and privilege to serve on the Knox County Board of Health with my fellow board members. But I feel as though, given the direction that has been set by the Knox County Commission, it is time for me to step aside and focus my time and energy elsewhere. His fellow colleagues we heard from choosing to stay on board. Member Dr. James Shamia says, my plan is to continue to serve. Given my involvement in the past several months, I hope that I may be able to make some contribution in this advisory capacity.
If that's the direction that we're headed, I am committed to serving for as long as I'm asked. I do enjoy giving back. I enjoy being a part of something, and I really do just want to help.
Well, we're taping this Thursday night, and at last check, Dr. Buchanan still had to meet with the law director and the county mayor's office to get some more clarity. Mayor Glenn Jacobs backs the change and said, quote, "This isn't because I think that the members of the Board of Health are not doing the best they can to protect Knox County against COVID-19. It's because no governmental body or authority, especially an unelected one, should have unlimited power. That's something that makes me very uncomfortable." We also caught up with Knoxville Mayor India Kincannon.
The Board of Health has been heroic in their leadership, as has Dr. Buchanan, and I appreciate all their hard work and applaud them for helping lead us through this global pandemic. They've done a great job.
There's also still a state law question at play. Representative Jason Zachary is spearheading legislation that would move the state's independent health boards to only advisory roles. The bill passed the House and is headed for the Senate floor a Senate floor vote next week.
Really doesn't change anything on the state level because it's still something that needs to be addressed and fixed within code. There's still a sense of urgency from me. We've already passed it in the House. It's in the Senate, and so I'm going to testify tomorrow, but it's up to our Senate colleagues to pass this and address this once and for all in Tennessee code.
And Thursday, we found out all of the Knoxville Police Department's uniformed officers now have body cameras. Think back to the summer of 2019 and the shooting of Philly Feep, killed by a police officer. Well, that shooting was ruled justified. Not long after, family, activists, and community members marched to City Council calling for a range of reforms, cameras included. Well, then Mayor Madeline Rogero said the city was looking into it with a test batch on order. Candidate India Kincannon, soon to become Mayor Kincannon, backed the idea as well. Now, the first test cameras showed up by January of last year, but the pandemic slowed things down. Thursday morning, I had the chance to see how the cameras work. City leaders hoped to make this announcement sooner, but nevertheless, they're here.
I feel that more often than not, this technology will highlight the professional, respectful, and empathetic actions of our officers.
The Knoxville Police Department has officially installed 297 body cameras and 333 in-car systems. Mayor India Kincannon sees this as a win for the public and the police.
The body-worn cameras are going to be a chance for our officers' actual work right here in Knoxville to be seen in a good, accountable, transparent way to showcase all the good work that is happening. And when there is room for improvement, we'll be able to see that too.
The software has a built-in redaction feature to blur sensitive information like the faces of innocent bystanders. It's just one of many high-tech features that come with the cameras.
It's night and day. The image quality, the clarity of the sound, being able now to have video inside a building rather than just from the car and outside the building is huge, and our officers have been asking for this.
The officer's body-worn camera and their in-car camera actually begin recording automatically as soon as an officer opens their door. And it even includes the 30 seconds before the door open. They also start recording when an officer exceeds 85 miles per hour or throws their emergency lights on.
It gives the public a sense of security as well as the officers themselves. It's just public confidence, and I think everyone's ready for that.
Now, we mentioned Philly Feep. His family's attorney called this a positive step, not a cure-all, wanting to make sure that citizens have access to the footage. Well, our panel of pundits is next. Stick with us. You're watching Tennessee This Week on WATE 6 on your side. All right, we want to welcome our panel of pundits. We've got our political analyst, George Corda, our political contributor, Courtney Piper, and our healthcare expert, Craig Griffith. Craig, I actually want to start with you tonight. We saw Bill Hagerty visit East Tennessee and talked about many issues on his visits, one of them being issues facing hospitals and rural hospitals in particular. He talked a lot about reimbursement rates from the federal government, but we didn't hear him mention Medicaid expansion. So I'm curious from you, do you see reimbursement rates as big of a problem as the uninsured rate in Tennessee, or no?
Well, the problem is a combination of both. The particular Medicare reimbursements he was talking about is a very complex process where there is one pot of money that's distributed amongst the entire country. And so the senators from the larger states protect their hospital's share of the pie. That's a very difficult battle to fight. I think it's almost easier to expand healthcare in Tennessee than it is to change that reimbursement rate. Many people have tried to change that rate over the years and have had very little success. So I think that we saw some cracks in the wall with the comments on Lieutenant Governor McNally about the potential to look at the Medicare expansion under the new law that President Biden passed. So we'll see if anything comes to pass. I noted that the House, Mr. Sexton, had very little positive to say about it. So I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but we'll see.
Courtney, what do you think in terms of Medicaid expansion versus reimbursement rates? Are they not, both kind of walking the same line there of more federal dollars?
It completely dumbfounds me that former Governor Bill Haslam found a solution to this, a Tennessee solution to expand Medicaid. And we are constantly trying to solve this problem of not providing Tennesseans with access to health care and health insurance. We're trying to solve this problem that Republicans don't like President Obama. So what are we going to do about it? And it's getting in the way of people getting access to health care and that they need, and the health insurance that they need. We have a solution on the table, and Republicans need to let their egos go aside so that Tennesseans can get the health care they need.
Fewer than 24 states have not expanded. George, do you see this coming to a different solution this time around?
I don't know, possibly. There could be enough pressure put because nobody cares about the debt or the deficit at all. You'll notice Hagerty was not asked once about the debt or the deficit. We're approaching $30 trillion in debt. We can't afford the government we have, so we're talking about adding billions or trillions more onto the government we can't already pay for, and pretending as if there's no impact now or in the future when this occurs. We're just playing this fantasy game that we can spend trillions of dollars. We can expand Medicaid. We can do all of these things. We can have a $2 trillion coronavirus. We can put $8 trillion toward coronavirus. And somehow that's not going to have an effect on the economy, on our futures, on our existence right now. So yeah, I think there's a possibility we'll go ahead and expand it because nobody cares about cost. It is a complete fantasy world.
George, what's the alternative?
Last Thursday, the S&P reached its highest level, over 4,000, amongst all this talk about, spending trillions and trillions of dollars. So why isn't the investment community upset about this high level of spending?
I don't give a flip about the investment community, Greg. What I can see is that the United States of America has indebted you and me and every other taxpayer out there for almost $30 trillion plus $100 trillion or more in unfunded liabilities. The president doesn't talk about it. The previous president didn't talk about it. Obama didn't talk about it. Clinton didn't talk about it. It was irrelevant. So if it's irrelevant to you guys, there's nothing I can say.
George, propose a solution. What is the solution? What is the alternative solution?
Courtney, if you want something,
I'm asking you a question. What is the alternative?
And you don't have the money, what do you do?
Well, if it's life or death, I'm going to have to borrow the money because I don't want to leave my family behind.
Well, right now, the taxpayers of the United States are going to pay something between $600 and $700 billion next year just in interest on the national debt.
But George, what is the alternative when you're faced with things like a global pandemic?
Keep borrowing.
Is very
Courtney,
real.
just keep borrowing. That's all you can do.
But
just
George, you're not giving us any alternatives. You're complaining about the solutions that we have right now.
What
you're not giving us any
alternatives. You are saying the only alternative is to spend incredible amounts of money we don't have.
I am not. I'm asking you to give us an alternative, and you are not doing it.
In Texas right now, COVID-19 cases are going down. In Florida, they're going down. In Tennessee, they're going down. They're going down.
So they continue to do that. We need to take a quick break on this. Stay with us, everybody.
You can't afford it.
See this week on WATE on USA. All right, welcome back, everyone. Another topic the senator spoke about when he was here in East Tennessee was H.R. 1, the proposal to voting in the U.S. and the filibuster, which would likely be needed for the Democrats to pass this sweeping legislation. I want to ask the three of you what you make of the proposal and what you think about filibuster reform overall. Courtney?
There is no evidence to suggest that voter fraud is an actual problem, that when fraud occurs, it is caught. So, we should be doing everything to make sure that we are protecting access and people's right to vote.
Okay, did you call me?
I did. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, on the side of the ID, on things such as voter ID, there are innumerable things that none of us can do every day that Americans can't do unless they show an ID. So the idea that showing an ID on the pale doesn't make sense to most Americans. And what was your other question?
I was asking what you thought about H.R. 1 and filibuster reform.
Well, filibuster, it's very simple. Back when Trump took office, there was a bipartisan display among senators that the Republicans and Democrats, they did not want to do away with the filibuster. But now the Democrats hold a slim majority based on the vice president. The Democrats used filibusters a lot when Trump was president, but now they have control with the vice president's vote. So now they want to do away with the filibuster. I think you leave it in place. You leave it in place because it protects the rights of the minority party, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, to force the other side to come to some sort of political compromise. And if you take it away, you've just got one party rule, and I don't agree with that.
Greg, filibuster, good or bad?
Well, early in the Trump presidency, he begged Mitch McConnell to change the Senate rules. They weren't passing anything. They couldn't get legislation approved. And Mitch McConnell refused to do it because he knew that at some point in time, he would be in the minority. He didn't think it was going to be as close as 4 years, but he knew sometime that there would be a minority situation where he would want to use the filibuster. So he didn't change those rules under the Trump presidency. So I have mixed emotions on it. Elections have consequences. So, every 4 years, people are going to come along and say, well, we need to get rid of the filibuster because we're in charge now. And is that a proper thing to do? Only time will tell. And we're sort of living in this cycle now of every 4 years anyway. It takes 2 years for the next president to undo everything the previous president did and try to work on his own or her agenda down the road. So I think we're in 100% gridlock, and filibuster is a good example of gridlock. Nothing gets done.
Well, Courtney, let me toss my last question your way. We saw that action by the county commission in regards to the Board of Health. There's still a lot of unanswered questions right now, and we still have a few days before that takes effect. But how do you see that playing out in terms of restrictions in Knox County, and do you see any political ramifications of that vote?
Well, first of all, regarding the restrictions and public health requirements, Martha Buchanan, the power, if this indeed goes through, Martha Buchanan holds that power. And she said that she would have put the same kind of restrictions in place. Now, politically, I think this gives a gift to Democrats in the city of Knoxville because we have city elections coming up. And this is going to really mobilize Democrats to come out and vote. So, in terms of giving a nice gift to Democrats to keep us in power on city council, I think it was a beautiful gift, and it really gives Democrats an opportunity to try and pick up one additional seat on county commission as well.
George, do you agree? A gift to the Democrats?
It won't have any effect. Nobody gives a lick. The city is not involved in this. Is a county, Knox County Health Board thing, and the idea that actually what the health board's doing is going back to the way it is explained on its very own website. On its website, it says it serves under the supervision of the county mayor. This was an aberration, and no elected official should be subservient to an unelected board ever. They are the elected representatives of the people, and they should be the one who are advised by the unelected board. Look, Board of Health, important group, but their job is to advise, not to dictate.
Craig, what do you see as the ramifications of that decision politically and practically?
Well, I think down the road, with the advisory board, with the health board and advisory position, some elected officials are going to have to make some very uncomfortable decisions they won't want to make, because these boards are created to give political bodies cover when they have to make tough decisions. So I think it's, and I think Dr. Briggs said it well a few shows that we had ago, that they're all thinking about fighting the current war and not the next pandemic. What they should have done is looked and see what worked this time, what didn't, what needs to be changed, and make changes then.
All right, Greg, Courtney, George, thank you so much. Thank all of you for watching. We'll see you next Sunday at 12:30.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.